Okay. I'll go ahead and open with the Lord's Prayer in the Aramaic language. And once I'm done, I'll dive in with tonight's topic. And then towards the end, I'll try to answer your questions. I have a question from I kept from one of the last sessions that I'll go over. But if you have any questions, please use your Q&A button on the app or on the computer program, and I'll try to get to your questions at the end. So if you take a second and center yourself, be present, be here with us, and I'll do the Lord's Prayer. أعوند وشميان قداش شماخ تأثي ملكوتاخ نهوي سوينخ إكند وشمية أبر حولا لحمة سنكانا يومنا واشوق لان حوبين إكنا داب حنان شوق لحيوين لا تعلن لأنسيونا إلا قصا من بيشة مثول دي لاخي ملكوثة حي لو تشبحته العالم عالمين. Amen. Well, tonight I wanted to I wrapped up last time I spoke a couple of weeks ago Jesus's core teachings, and I call them the Jesus freedom teachings, because he really managed to capture our humanity and what bothers us the most, and our fears, and what gives us the most joy. And he kind of did his own mix of the old teachings that he was exposed to, his own observations, and gave us a new way of looking at our lives and more importantly at each other, and even our perception of what we call Allah or God. He changed the perspective, because as the monotheistic religions were conceived early on, almost 2,000 years before Jesus's time, they had, like any good metal, that if you keep exposed for a long time without care, it ends up collecting rust, and other things might cover it, and then pretty soon you don't know that you have gold in your hands. You start thinking that this gold is really this awful looking thing that we got to with time passing. So what he did 2,000 years ago is he basically polished the teachings that were already with us, and reminded us that the presence of God's kingdom is here. It's always been here, and it's always available for us to participate in it, and that we are the eyes of God, the mouths of God, the hands of God. We are the doers and the ones who bring the kingdom into existence. So here we are. I'm looking at us 2,000 years after Jesus, and it seems like we've repeated the same pattern. We've put a whole bunch of things on top of the teachings, the polished view of God's kingdom, and we created this very hard to live in world. I truly believe that there is a lot of hope, that there is a lot of goodness that's happening in the world that we don't hear about. And our tendency is to always, we care more about negative news. I was just reading an article not too long ago about how empathy and goodwill and so forth are making a great comeback, but we don't hear about it because the example they used is if there is a sunrise or a sunset, we don't really, it doesn't hurt us. It's good, and we don't think about it, in our news. But if there is a tsunami, our nature is to pay attention to the tsunami because it could hurt us. So with the abundance of social media and news networks, we're constantly bombarded with information, And they can't typically sustain our attention by talking about good things. Even if there are a lot of good things happening, we kind of like, okay, well, whatever. The sunrise was beautiful this morning. But if you tell me that, and there's an explosion, then I'm going to pay attention, because is that explosion close to me? Is it far from me? Did it hurt somebody I love? Did it not? So we engage with the negative news because it kind of worries us. And Jesus was very keen in understanding that. He talked a lot about worrying and how we need to free ourselves from that. So what came to me as I'm looking at all of this is the whole idea of judgment and justice. And because the brain plays this game with us. And then not only do we receive news, we tend to formulate an opinion. And Jesus was good at also freeing us from that aspect. And what I just did in the Lord's Prayer, which is really the most condensed version of, like, if you took all of Jesus's teachings and wanted to squeeze them into a few sentences, it's in the Lord's Prayer. And then you can take each one of those sentences and expand on it, and it gives you a perspective of the universe, of soul, of the relationship with God, of the relationship with one another, of our worries about food, and it's all built in. And the part I wanted to dive into tonight is when he says, forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And you can take that as just about forgiveness, but I think it's bigger than that. It's his way of telling us we can't just expect all the goodness to come towards us without us giving goodness back. And judgment is a component of that. So where I wanted to start, and tonight I'm Rabbi Errico, hopefully you'll be happy with this. I actually dug out this book from Dr. Errico. I wish he would have done the Gospel of John the same way, but this is the Gospel of Matthew. And what it has in it, it has the Aramaic on one side and the English on the other side, with a lot of footnotes. The footnotes are not quite as detailed as the commentary, but there is a lot of knowledge built into that. So today I dug this out. It's one of my favorite books, and I rarely use it because I'm always jumping into other books in the Bible. But tonight I want to go back to Matthew and share with you Jesus's teachings. Again, I'm going back. That you'll always, with me, and I'm almost getting to a point where I've spoken so much about Jesus that I'm sometimes I have a hard time come up with the next topic, because I always think, oh, well, I do have a recording of this, or I did speak about that in 2009 or 2015 or whatever. So hopefully I'll just, and I don't like repetition, and unlike my Eastern tradition, and if you hear Dr. Rocco talk about Dr. Lamzat, a lot of the tradition, actually Jesus himself repeats a lot, because in days before writing and books, it was one way of kind of drilling the information into people's memory, is repeating the same story over and over, or the same teaching over and over. And with that, it becomes incorporated. You don't have to be reminded of it. In my case, I have maybe it's a blessing, maybe it's a curse, but I do remember the things I spoke about. So when I go to talk about it again, I'm imagining you looking at me going like, Hanny, you did this, in 2022. Why are you telling us this again? Or I just listened to one of your videos, and I don't want to hear it again. So that's one of my struggles with the ministry of Jesus. Is Jesus, just his ministry lasted 2 years maybe, and if we want to stretch it, it might be 5 years. And I've been doing this for close to 25 years. So that you can see where repeating Jesus over and over again, but yet there is always insight. There is always that the Spirit is always working with me to bring in a different perspective and relate it to today's world. So hopefully I won't bore you with that. But and the reason judgment came to me today is because we are bombarded right now. We have a very high-profile lawsuit taking place and a trial happening in New York that has the media in frenzy about every aspect of it, the drive there, that this person went in, this person went out, this sketch was done. So it's, and I'm thinking, we are obsessed with the legal system, and Jesus saw from early on, and I don't want to, give too much of it because I want to just bring it in the right order. So in Jesus in Matthew 5:17 is where I want to start. And the difference between this version that I'm using. So Matthew chapter 5 begins with a very critical part of Jesus's ministry, of his constitution, and that's what we call the Beatitudes. And there he draws on people who are a part of the community who are usually marginalized or not noticed, and he lifts them up. And those people are like the peacemakers. So if you think about a peacemaker and you think about a judge, or think about a peacemaker and you think about an arbitrator or a lawyer in our legal system, Jesus saw that in the legal system, which they had a very strong legal, actually, he had multiple legal systems he had to deal with in his time. He had the religious legal system. Those are the people that were counting steps and making sure that you're tithing correctly and paying the temple tax correctly and so forth. So there were standards, and Moses was really where a lot of this legality started in contrast to the spirituality that was the initial perspective of Abraham's religion. So Abraham was more about a God that can drop in, you dream about him, he visits you in the tent, you share with him food. That's the God of Abraham, simple, but yet had high moral standards that and loved all the people. And that's the message that was given to Abraham. And through the time after Abraham, the what we call in the Jewish tradition, the patriarchs and so forth, and a lot of the prophets were all thinking in that perspective, from a spirituality perspective, leading humanity into a better place. Stop human sacrifice. Stop fighting with one another. So there are a lot of good standards, and so Moses came, and initially he brought in early on in his leadership, but Moses was a political leader. So, and I know I can talk about Moses for hours, but Moses unfortunately does not excite me because he has a political side to him and a nation building side. He was a political leader. In a way, very similar to the Prophet Muhammad, who started spiritually, was attacking and tackling social issues and injustices and social trouble, anywhere from too much drinking in his community. They were killing little girls, because little girls in Arabia at the time of Muhammad were a burden with warring tribes, and they didn't support the tribal mindset of men fighting with one another and so forth, and going on trading or raids. And so there was a practice at the time of Muhammad where they would take, if somebody had 2-3 girls and they got a fourth one, they would take her and bury her in the sand alive. The father would take her and bury her in the sand, and that drove the prophet crazy, and he spoke strongly against it. Plus, he spoke strongly against slavery. So Muhammad started there, but then with more resistance around him, by the time he made it out of Mecca, running for his life, because they were now coming at him, he was threatening their business in the form of their religion. They had the center of religion, and people would go on pilgrimage to Mecca the same way they do today. But today they go visit the Kaaba in Mecca to pray for God, and they consider they think it was built by Abraham and his son Ishmael. So it's a very holy place for Muslims. But before that, that same building used to house all the idols for idol worship. And that bothered Muhammad. But every time he spoke against it, he was threatening the business side of his own tribe, actually, that was ruling. And he went against them over and over and over, was protected initially by his grandfather and then by his uncle when he became a prophet. And then when his uncle died, that support started going away, and he had to run away to a different town that accepted him. But then to provide for his people, he raided some of the caravans that belonged to Mecca, to his own tribe. That created the first battle, and battle after battle, he became a political leader, and he started fighting, and he had an army and so forth. And so that's why almost the journey of Muhammad very similar to like the full journey of Abraham to Moses in Judaism. Versus contrast that with Jesus, who refused to use a sword when they came to arrest him. He refused to run away, and he refused to even defend himself when he was being judged, because he wanted peace, and he thought that peace will prevail, and he counted on humanity sometimes on people who did not see the same way he did. So throughout time, we've had this constant struggle between people who want to do the right thing and knowing what the right thing is. And I think in Jesus, he saw that all of us are capable of that. And maybe that's one of his faults, or it might be one of his blessings, that even the worst people, they know when they're doing something bad, that they're doing something bad, and they're maybe raised in a selfish way in a system that tells them it's okay to get away with that. It's okay to get more than you need. It's okay to take away from other people. And we see that reflected throughout our society today. Most of who we think is making it, or the successful businesses and so forth, are the ones who just keep gobbling up more and more and more and more of the economy. And we think, okay, I want to invest my retirement with that company, because that's the company that's going to control the world and bring us more revenue. So my retirement is more comfortable. Or if you're not close to retirement, it's your investments, and you can buy a bigger house and a bigger car and newer car and so forth. So we put a lot of value on that success. And Jesus was hoping that we would actually alter that would be looking at what we need, and not worrying about the material side of things, thinking that a community that works together will get us there anyway. So that's why he was lifting up. So I started with the blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be known as children of God. So that connection, where he starts with that, is about the role of a peacemaker. Do you think our judges today, and maybe judges are slightly better than they were at the time of Jesus, but if you think about the lawyers, the defense lawyers especially, do you think that they're sitting there wanting to behave and act like God would want them to? Or are they driven by the books and the success of defending somebody and getting them out of whatever trouble they're in? And I know that I sat on jury duty, and I know that there is that balance. And in most cases, it does work well, because we try as a society to write laws that protect everybody. The reality of the execution, especially on bigger, higher profile cases, is odds are people will get away with things, especially powerful people with a lot of money and a lot of lawyers. So Jesus wanted the peacemakers to be the lawyers. And early on in the Jewish history, before they got their first king, King Saul, they relied on judges, on good judges, and on the prophets to travel from town to town. They were the peacemakers. They're the ones who would come in and make a call on anything. versus, and they applied the spiritual rules initially that Moses put in place. We call them the Ten Commandments because they all make sense. And then eventually, and later on, those became, they had a punitive side to them. There was punishment. So initially, Moses just said, okay, everybody, we're going to stop killing one another. Okay, so do not kill. Then later it became, or you will be killed. So every time you develop a law or a rule, that the human tendency for some reason is to push the limits on that. What if I break it? Or how far can I go before I pay a price? Jesus saw all of that, all the dynamics in his community. So where I want to go with this is I'm going to start Matthew 5:17 through 21. I'll read it and then I'll go over it. And this is Dr. Eriko's translation, so please pay attention to it because it's slightly different even than Dr. Lamza's. Since he has the Aramaic side by side, he tried to be very, very accurate, trying to capture the essence of Aramaic. So do not imagine that I have come to nullify the law. Now he's talking about the Torah, the rules that were before him, or the prophets. Okay, because the prophets gave us some rules that are even better sometimes than the Ten Commandments and that what Moses ordered. I have not come to nullify, but to fulfill. So I'm going to bring it to full execution. The kingdom needs those laws to function. For I truly tell you that until heaven and earth shall pass away, not even a yod or a line shall pass away from the law until all shall be fulfilled. So he put a lot of emphasis on that because every bit of it was well thought and was well developed. Now, anyone who merely analyzes one of these small commandments and teaches the people so, he shall be regarded as least in the kingdom of heaven. But anyone who practices and teaches, he shall be regarded as great in the kingdom of heaven. So it's understanding these and practicing them is where, and then you can apply it. Jesus was very in all his teachings, he was holding us, each individual, accountable because he knew that there will be people similar to the religious people of his time who will understand these things. They won't practice them, but they will hold them over everybody. So this is the subtlety of what he's talking about. And now he's talking to a group who's sitting, the Sadducees were sitting amongst them. The Pharisees were sitting there, the scribes who had a lot of power because they could read and write the law. And people came to them to ask them, what about this rule? What about that rule? So they were there and he was just poking at them saying, you have to practice what you preach. You can't just preach it. For I tell you that if your devoutness or the devoutness does not surpass that of the scribes and Pharisees, you shall not enter the kingdom of heaven. Okay, so they were the highest people who understood the law, and he was pointing at them and saying, if you are going to set your standard to that, it's not good enough. You have to surpass it. So you have to be above the law. That the rule that Jesus was putting in place was above the rule that was defined. So anything that was written, right? You have to look at it as bare minimum, not as the standard. In today's society, we take it as the standard. We debate in our courts, in our arbitration, in the thousands of words that we put in every agreement that we sign, and now we are so numb to it. So taking Jesus's problem of 2,000 years ago and applying it to today, think about how many times you have to accept when you're on your phone, accept when you download a new app, whether it's a news app or a game or a DNA app or anything. You know, you're accept, and we're so numb to it. And you know who develops these rules? They're lawyers. Okay, they're attorneys and their system, and they're studying the law of the land and the law of the country, and each country and things have to apply. European Union has different rules. We have different rules. The Middle East, each country has its own different rules. And we're in that, all the protection is not to protect you, who's saying I accept, it's to collect data and protect the companies who use that data. So do you see where this? So imagine now if you are sitting, if your job, and maybe some of you do that because I have history with these agreements, and what made me feel comfortable because I went into that role after I started following the teachings of Jesus is I read every sentence and I wrote every sentence and I reviewed every sentence from the perspective of this applies to me as a human being, and I want it to be the best thing I can put out there for all human beings who will be using the thing that I'm creating or the thing that I'm approving. Okay, so and that was hard. So I had to push back on lawyers. I had to push back on investors. I had to push back on leaders who wanted to say, no. The business, the standard is we collect the data. The standard is we share the data. We monetize the data. We make money off the data. And you're saying that you don't want to share. It's like, yeah, I look at this as this is my wife's, my mom's data, my best friend's data. I don't want it, to go make money off it. I want it to be there. I collect it to do something good for those people, not to compromise them and make Google and Apple and anybody and their brother can buy that data in a lot of the cases that we accept today. So think about Jesus is teaching, be above that. Otherwise, you're going at the bare minimum, you're going to create a lot of damage. And it gets misused and abused. Oh, I don't have time. Oh my God. I'm still on the first set of verses and I have like a lot of notes. And I have some questions. So, okay, you have heard that it was said to those who were before you, you shall not murder, and anyone who murders deserves the judgment of the court. So he's talking about the Mosaic law. But I say to you, so he's changing here, that anyone who is angry with his brother for no reason deserves the judgment of the court. So think about that. I mean, we read this and we probably heard it 1,000 times. And is that an important teaching of Jesus's? Absolutely. Okay. So murder is typically an act that happens after a whole bunch of acts took place. A lot of thoughts sometimes, not necessarily acts. So to reach that point of anger, to go and plot and kill somebody. Okay, we're not talking about accidental death. And Moses had a lot of rules about accidental death as well. But in this case, Jesus is going to root cause. He's almost saying that we don't need the do not kill commandment because we need a do not get angry commandment ahead of it. Do not angry commandment means that I have to reflect on what makes me angry. I have to be accountable for how I react. I hear day after day that you disrespect me. You're attacking my personality. You're attacking my belief system. You're attacking my property. See, those are the things that we take for granted. It's my right to feel all this righteousness about my approach. And then if you tread on that, and in the US, that's a historical statement. Do not tread on me because of my freedoms. So, but going into why do we buy into these things? I know we study them at school. I know that they're passed on societally, and we accept them, and then we make them a part of us to a point where it could take our basic humanity and change it into killing, or hitting somebody, or plotting to injure somebody one way or another. I forgive, but I don't forget. That's not Jesus. That's us trying to compromise Jesus's system. And those are important things. So he's saying, if what we should have courts like, oh, somebody got angry, let's go to the peacemakers. Let's see, why did you get angry? Do you have the right? I mean, it could be that somebody did something really awful and made you angry, but let's get to the bottom of it while you're just angry before it becomes killing, before it comes an action. So that's what Jesus wanted. He wanted us to go solve our problems early on, not let them build up. And anyone who says to his brother, you are worthless, I love that translation, Ravi, deserves the judgment of the congregation. And anyone who says, you are stupid, is sentenced to Gehenna of fire, mental torment. Okay, they and the congregation. So you're taken to court, or you're judged by the congregation, or you're mentally tormented when you do these things. He knew that when people's actions affect us and we start boiling, okay, if we act upon it, if we think about it, it sets us on fire. It makes us so almost irrational, and then self-righteous on top of it. And in our case, in this country, some of us have weapons. It's a very, very dangerous formula for bad. Okay, so he wanted nip it. Now, if you remember last time I spoke, I said one of Jesus's basic teachings is nip it. So I'm always thinking, can I, anything that comes my way that is bad, can I nip it? If I see a situation that developing in front of me, can I nip it? Okay, if I have a thought that is leading me in the wrong direction, can I nip it? Okay, so this is like, I mean, this is modern day language, nip it. Okay, that Jesus would have loved that if he was speaking English. If then it happens that you may be offering your sacrifice upon the altar. So now he's giving a practical thing. And this practical teaching that I'm going to read you, it goes against like the basic formula for most of our religion today. Okay, but it should be core, and it was core in Christianity. It's core in Islam. It's supposed to be core in Islam, but also it's getting lost. So you're offering your sacrifice upon the altar, and right there you remember that your brother holds something of a grudge against you. Okay, so now Mosaic law, you do something bad, and you go to the altar, you sacrifice. God wipes it clean, you're good to go. Okay, now that's how religion. Remember, Moses is doing this to feed the poor people in his community, and above all, also feed his brother and his family who were taking care of the altar at the temple. So Jesus, though, is saying, no, don't go do, reconcile with God first. That's not what you need to do. Leave your sacrifice right there on the altar. Okay, so to drop it, don't throw it in the fire. Put it there. So don't complete the sacrifice side. First thing, to reconcile with your brother, and then come present your sacrifice. So it's more important that you go make up with the people that you have problems with than it is to sacrifice to God at the altar. Think about that. I mean, this is a prophet of God. And this is a guy who's saying, I'm coming here to bring the kingdom of heaven to earth, to enact it right here, right now. And one of his early teachings is that don't go to Jerusalem and do your sacrifice at the altar, or wherever an altar is in your community, and get the blessing of the priest and go home happy. Hey, I did my part with God. If you have any grudge with anybody who's close to you, he says brother, and you can, it's literally brother, but anybody you have a grudge with, go solve that problem, nip it, solve that problem before it becomes a bigger problem. And you're thinking, oh, but God is happy with me. Yeah. So do you see how this? I mean, imagine if tomorrow you're the next Sunday, let's say, or Saturday, whenever you pray, or Friday if you're Muslim, If the imam or the priest stands there or the minister and says, everybody, I'm not going to pass the baskets now. We're going to pass the baskets in 2 hours, or come tomorrow morning at 8, we'll open for the baskets. But everybody who has any problem with anybody, go fix it first and then come back. And then take care of the God part of things. That church probably would not make money that week. And it would be very hard for people, because once you apply that, but then once you come back, that's Jesus's bet, is once you all come back to actually do the sacrifice or give your tithe, it will be a much better community. And not only that, you probably will quadruple in size because of all the people that you had angered in the past, who would not go to that church because you're in it, or because the community stood against them or anything. So think about the power of that teaching and how practical it is. I have an ad here, sorry. Okay. So I'm just going to continue with this, because he's just going down one by one. Become reconciled with your accuser immediately while you are on the road with him, lest your accuser hand you over to the judge. Then the judge hand you over to the jailer, and you shall be thrown into prison. So don't trust the legal system. I was talking about all the rules that the laws that Jesus had to deal with, and I spoke about the religious side. He was also under Roman occupation. Roman occupation had its own rules and its own laws, and the Roman laws, and they had their courts and so forth. So you had to, if you were Jewish, you had to obey the religious-based laws. Then you had to obey also the Roman laws of the land. And of course, as Christianity spread, they went under so many different rules. The ones who went to India went under the Indian rules. The ones who went to Persia went under Persian rules. So you, as a follower of Jesus, as you migrate, as you move around, as wherever you live, okay, you have to be thinking the same way he basically ordered us to be. He said you have to be above the law of the land. You have to be better, and in his case, better than the Pharisees and the scribes, and in many cases avoid the judges, because the judges is a bare minimum law. That's we always, all our laws are bare minimum to just keep the society at peace. If we want to create a better society, if we want to lift up the society and live in a place where we all feel safe, where we don't feel that we need to lock the doors and have guns or avoid people and so forth, you have to start implementing this. And it's hard, as I said, during all this time, throughout our history, communities could change and become better communities. And sometimes people will try to take advantage of it. And sometimes wars will come. And Jesus was aware of that. But we are living, our lifespan is limited. It's, we are actually self-aware from maybe day one. And then if we're lucky, we live into I think my age projections is the 90s, maybe with the medicine and so forth, we might make it into the hundreds. Some people are talking in few years, people will be living to 150. Okay, so with their mental abilities and bodies that can carry them that long. But even if you think about it, it's 150 years. We make a lot of our decisions not based on that. And that's where Jesus is strong. If we all made that let's say that 70, 80 years that we can contribute to this, good years, everybody benefits from it. That was his bet. Then that was the change. And that's why he healed the Romans. That's why he healed and spoke with the Samaritans. That's why he worked with the Phoenicians, because he knew that for him, for his community to get better, those barriers have to be broken. And then he knew that within his community, we need to rise above that law, above the law that we set, the bare minimum, whether it's religious law or whether it's legal system. He knew that if that's the bare minimum we hold ourselves accountable to, then we're all trying to trick the system. We're all trying to pay less taxes. We're all trying to make more money. We're all trying to get the best deal when our neighbor is in trouble and we can take over their home or their car or something without paying them the fair market value. He didn't want that community. He knew that that community it will fester with trouble, with hatred, with people taking advantage of people, and it will never be a happy place to live in. He wanted us to change that. And with that, I'm going to stop and I'll go back to it because there's a question that I really want to take care of. And then I have three. If you have any questions about what I'm talking about, and now we have 4 questions. So yeah, keep him coming. But the question that I deferred last time, the person, I think this came on the YouTube channel. So I was thinking how the Aramaic language uses extremes and how Jesus used extremes to bring balance, like when he exercises humility riding the colt when it was expected that he ride on a horse. This is when he entered Jerusalem. Is there any instance of Jesus using a middle road approach to teaching? And the next question is, or is there any instance of him going back on what he said to restore balance? So the simple answer is no. And the reason for that I'm very confident as I studied Jesus all these years, is that he had a very clear path to peace, a very clear path to happiness. And if he at any point, and he reflected on that. See, Jesus did not start talking when he was 20 and then got wiser at 25 and said, oh, forget what I told you when I was 20. I thought I knew everything, but now I really know everything, and so forth, which is what we tend to do. But what Jesus did is he studied the whole time until he felt comfortable to declare himself. And then even when he declared himself, at least according to the Gospels, he declared himself, and then he's like, okay, I'm ready, but what is this going to look like? It's, similar to what I opened with. It's like, okay, I've been talking about Jesus for 25 years, which is, at least 5 times the amount of time he was with us in his ministry, if not more. So it's like, what is the end result? What is my ministry? What difference am I going to make? So that's why what he laid on his way to building his ministry was all truths that he never really went back on them. He never said, oh, that judge thing about, going to the court. It might be a good idea sometimes to do it if the case is X, Y, and Z. He knew that every time you held a grudge and then you took people and sued them and went to the judge, or especially in our case, a lot of the lawsuits that you see, besides business-oriented ones, are neighbor against neighbor, and the saddest one is when 2 spouses go take each other to court when they decide to break a marriage. And that I have not heard, and I've heard about a lot of those cases, and I don't think I've heard once where the 2 people came out of that going like, you know what, we barely paid like $5 to the lawyer, and we're both very happy with the arrangement. It's a constant bang, bang, bang. I hate you. You took this from me. I took that from you. I'm gonna get that from you. This is mine. This is mine. And it's so if Jesus would have changed his mind about any of these things I'm telling you, it would have created more trouble. So he had very good sense of what is good, what is right, and what is wrong. And as I said earlier, he counted that even the people who are doing evil things, they know that they're doing evil things. And sometimes they're okay with it because they were raised to think that they were okay with it. Okay, we do that to ourselves in our business model. That when I went like this to work, people pointed out and said, you know what, you need to go back, but go to the store now. And I was sent to the store literally to go get a tie, and maybe if I was wearing shorts, go get regular pants, and then come back, because that would put me in a different persona that the business world expects of me, and they expected me to make different decisions based on the goodness of the business, not on goodness, period. Jesus wanted us to do goodness, period, not goodness based on a situation. So that's why when I answered the question, when I read it, it made me think, because I really had to go through Jesus's ministry from beginning to end, and thinking, did he really go like, whoa, time out? Remember, when we were in Capernaum. I told you this, is just forget it. Here is the new way to do it. Because he really put a lot of emphasis on specific things, and he kept it simple. The other trick of Jesus is he kept it simple. The more we complicate things, and one of my favorite sayings of Jesus is, it's actually, we'll probably come into it if I kept reading, is he said, when you are asked a question, you answer yes, yes, and no, no. Anything more than that is basically you're starting to deceive. Okay, so that's the simplicity of the Jesus method. You know what's right, you know what's wrong, you know what's yes, you know what's no. Anything other than that, then you're veering into an unknown, into the gray zone, and the gray zone can cause a lot of trouble. So that's my response to that one. I'd love to see if there's a follow-up. Okay, I'm gonna read today's questions. Thank you. I think the comment is about I've been studying with the comment with Dr. Errico for over 40 years, and every time I listen to him, I learn something new. So please keep teaching over and over again. I'm doing it, so I haven't walked away yet, but I'll continue. And just like this, I thought this part of Matthew probably 5-6 times so far, in depth in many cases. But yes, it always comes across differently, and there was no lawsuit the last time, or a trial in New York when I did it last time. So the next question is it your perspective that Jesus was a man like every other prophet? Absolutely. Jesus, I said that the last time I spoke, is that he and actually it's a good time, because I had been thinking about this in the form of how we want Jesus to be a superhero. And maybe he is a superhero, but he's more of a Batman, not a Superman. So to me, Batman and was able to go back to his normal life. But what he did is he used technology and so forth to take care of bad people. And not that Jesus was that kind of superhero, but he was human. Batman to me is more human. Superman, born on a different planet, can fly. And that's the Jesus Christ that we want to see in our plays, and actually a lot of churches and religion represent Jesus as that Superman. But he is really a Superman in that he observed how to heal. He observed how to create a better community. He observed who are the good people in his community, who he could lift up and leverage and use as models for other people to follow. And then looked at very detailed problems. He watched people go to judges and lose everything they own and get thrown in jail. So he's like, solve the problem before you get there. He saw people who are just happy-go-lucky. I just sacrificed at the temple, and they're sad, and they had a lot of people who hated them and wouldn't talk to them. But they thought, oh, my relationship with God is great because I just killed a pigeon at the altar. But nobody will talk to me because I will not go and reconcile with the people I love and the people I've done business with, or my relatives and my brothers and sisters. So he was very observant of that, and everything he told us, you can do this and even better. And we want him to be the only child of God, and the mistranslation, or the intentional mistranslation that happened years after Jesus about him being the only son. He wasn't. He was saying, I am like the oldest son who knows all the tricks of the Father, so I'm going to teach you all, and you all can be children of God. He constantly said that. That's why he said, the peacemakers, you'll be known as the children of God. Absolutely. He was a man walking in Galilee 2,000 years ago with a lot of wisdom, a lot of knowledge, and a lot of love for humanity. And he paid an ultimate price for his teachings. He was killed for his teachings, but he did not compromise. He did not change them. He did not alter them slightly. He did not say, oh, wait a minute, yes, let's compromise. He was clear, and all his teachings were very good. When you're following Jesus, and especially if you study him, you will just know how to take the next step, and no matter where you land and how people react to that landing, you know that you're doing the right thing, and with no fear, with total peace and love for yourself and for them, and you'll just keep walking, and you will keep teaching, and you will keep setting examples. And that's what he wanted his apostles and disciples and us, all of us, to do when we opened our eyes and learned his system and his method. And so the next question is, what is the kingdom of heaven? The kingdom of heaven is the declaration that Jesus made as soon as he appeared, as soon as he started his ministry. And that's what he ordered all his disciples and apostles to do. When he sent them on missions, he said, go tell the people, is the kingdom of heaven or the kingdom of God. That Matthew uses kingdom of heaven because Jewish people at the time of Jesus, and even to this day, a lot of people are not comfortable, even if they feel such reverence for God that they don't want to say the name Allah. So versus if you go to the Gospel of Mark, you see that he calls it the kingdom of God, God's sovereign presence, a place. It's kind of like a realm. It's not a different place. It's earth with God's rules. That's what it is, with God's guidance and God's rules. And Jesus goes into a lot of detail. So I have a feeling that I'm going to continue with Matthew next time. It's all about how Jesus brings the practical side of God's love and God's power into our lives, and how it changes and transforms our ability to live that happy life, that those 70, 80 years that we spend here, that we can make them the best they could be. And if we lose our life because we're doing it the way Jesus did, we don't feel bad, because the one day being fully free and fully happy and fully impactful is better than 70 years of fear and hate and greed and depression. And believe me, if you experience that one day, and a lot of Christians feel it the first time they join a church, and they feel that power of God, but then the system that they get taught in churches strips away that, and they end up in hating the other Christians, hating other religions, hating other nations, and wanting more because they buy into other economic ideas that are floating around, and social media and the news, and they end up not able to filter through that the way Jesus wanted us to filter through it. So if you have Jesus in your life, his teachings, not just the concept of Jesus, his teachings working and guiding your life, the negative news does not, you'll feel the pain of somebody dying, of somebody losing their life in a hurricane or in a tsunami and you'll feel, and you'll want to go join in arms with other humans to go help that community and bring it back to its feet. That's Jesus. Okay. But if you feel that way, and your thinking is, I'm not going to travel, I'm not going to help, they deserve it because maybe they did something bad, then you're more religious, not a follower of Jesus. You're more self-righteous, not a follower of Jesus. Jesus wanted compassion to drive us. He wanted love to, and that's the only thing. He didn't. I mean, today Christians wear crosses, okay, or they do. Some people in Islam, they grow a beard and they shave a mustache, or they people Jewish people circumcised. Okay, Jesus said, "Love one another. That's how they'll know you're my followers." That's it. I mean, how can you put a that they're born Muslim, born Christian, born Buddhist, born atheist, whatever you are. If you love one another, you're a follower of Jesus. That you're following the Jesus method. So he wanted that. That's the kingdom of heaven. When you start behaving that way, and then you start seeing everybody as an equal, And we won't have slavery. We won't have issue. We will forgive one another. We will love one another. We will share. We will not want to possess. We will want to give away. We want to be light. We want to travel safely. We all have that desire of interacting. It kills me that I don't know the name of every neighbor on my street. A lot of them, they don't. It's like, it's not because I've done anything bad, or I'm hanging a flag that they don't like, or driving a car that's frowned upon, but people are afraid. People are, they feel if they're not, if they're immigrants. I'm an immigrant. They feel like they could be judged if their skin color is slightly different than the neighbor next door. They feel like, I'm gonna make a historical reference. The kingdom of heaven is not that. Is every human being you run into is as good as you are. Love them, love them, love them, love them. Even if you think they're enemies and they do some things, or they put a flag that you don't agree with, love your enemy, Jesus told you, because it changes the whole community. Then, when you go like, oh, I'm bringing you a cake, and I'm not going to talk about politics. I'm just going to talk about your kids. I'm going to talk about how wonderful the tree you're growing out there. Yeah, that's what we need to be focused on, not the things that divide us. Okay, I have 4 minutes. If I don't get to all your questions, I'll try to tackle that next time. Thank you for Nipit. You're welcome. Please share your perspective for discerning best direction for balanced spiritual and monetary living. I hopefully I covered some of that. It is hard, and I see like what's happening with the demonstrations by the students asking universities to divest away from businesses that create weapons, or support one government versus the other. I think it goes deeper than that, because that's also has a lot of self-righteousness. I don't disagree with the action. I don't disagree with highlighting when there is somebody doing something evil, that for the sake of money and so forth, that we should just go and benefit from it. But it takes a lot of effort. And I don't want you to feel unhappy and depressed because one of the companies in your portfolio that your retirement is in, it does not really live by the Jesus standard. But I think it's worth the conversation. I think it's worth, if you feel compelled to actually talk to your investment person and see if there's an alternative. Okay, and how does that impact you? Sometimes we are like afraid to rock the boat, but it's a question. Okay, and if the answer is too difficult for you to, if it's going to delay your retirement by 5 years, then maybe stay with this plan and keep your eyes open. Something else might open up. The world is constantly changing, and I think we will see more change. And especially if it's driven by good. I spoke before about guns. I spoke before about starving these companies that make rockets and bombs, whoever they sell it to, whoever they give it to. Okay, I'm not, you don't take sides. Bombs are bad, whether they are in the hands of Palestinians or the hands of the Israelis, the hands of the Russians or the hands of the Ukrainians. Bombs are bad, they kill people. Okay, so if you stop investing in those companies, if you stop sending your kids to their job fairs, if you stop, buying the team covers that have their logos on them, then you're sending a message. You're saying we don't want bombs anymore. Okay, we want to get along. We want a safe place to live in. We don't want to see that bad news repeating itself. That's the action of a follower of Jesus. And believe me, because I try to apply it, it is not easy. It's very hard, but I know I'm not anti-Israeli businesses. I'm not anti-Israelis. I'm Palestinian, okay? Because there are a lot of good people, and I have a lot of good Israeli and Jewish friends. And I check on them, and I check on their families to make sure that they're safe. So I don't blindly take, if it's Palestinian, it's good. I know some of the political parties that are involved in the current war are not good people. Okay, they're Palestinians, but they're not good people, and they're influenced by external powers and their own motivation. But don't blindly do, just put a like on it because it's Palestinian. I'm discerning, I'm thinking, but then I'm ultimately guided by the teachings of Jesus, because I have to love even the bad Israelis and even the bad Palestinians. I have to consider their humanity. I don't like to see them killed. I don't like them to be hurt. And I hope from the bottom of my heart that one day they'll open their eyes and go, what the hell are we doing? We're not being human beings. We're not being good human beings. We are entrusted with power and money and bombs and so forth, and we can do better. And there is a lot of better. I mean, the billions that we're spending on destruction, imagine that here on healthcare, imagine it on homelessness, imagine it on hunger, imagine it in Palestine and Israel on building wonderful resorts and good homes and so forth. Billions and billions, trillions of dollars we put into destruction out of fear instead of out of love into something that can make this a better world. With that, I thank you for spending your time with me. I thank you for your support. I know that it takes a lot from us to put these programs together. So anything that you're giving, we really appreciate it. And until next week, take care.